Hello, everyone. Welcome to our interview series, Counterattack, featuring the struggles of people against war and militarism that are left out of Western media. I'm Victor, and I'm joined by my co-host, Carly Brooke. We're representing the Resist US-led War Movement Global Secretariat, which is a international network of pro-peace and anti-war organizations united under two principles. The first one being resist US-led war, and the second one to build just peace. We have the honor to have our first guest for the series being Foad Izadi, Associate Professor at the Faculty of World Studies and Faculty of World Studies at the University of Tehran, to talk about the situation on the ground in Iran and people's resistance to this brutal US Zionist war on the Islamic Republic. Fawad has been covering the US war on Iran and combating Western media propaganda against the Islamic Republic for years now. Thank you so much for being here and welcome.
Thank
Fawad.
you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I think to start, really wanted to talk about the situation on the ground in Iran since February 28th, but we know that the US has been putting on sanctions on the Islamic Republic for years now. So, talking a little bit about the impacts on the people of this war, Israeli and US war on Iran. If you can talk a little bit about that.
Yes, mm, I live in Tehran. I'm at home, and we get four, five rounds of bombings every day. For it's been about a month now. In a couple of days, it's going to be a month since Iran has been under attack. Um, it's difficult. We are losing a lot of civilians. Um, there is no limitations on the targets that the Israelis and Americans are hitting. Um, More than 50 hospitals have been attacked. Uh, Lots of schools. On the first day, you remember, we lost 165 little girls when their school was hit with an American Tomahawk missile. The schools were closed on that day. I have children at the school, so when the war started, I went to my children's school to pick them up. Um, the government here asked people to, if they can, leave larger cities, go to villages, smaller towns, with the hope that since there is less infrastructure in these areas, they would be safer relatively. And so the city is less populated. Um, and when Netanyahu started his genocide in Gaza, he called Palestinians Amalek. Uh, that's a terminology that, in their twisted ideology, can be used to basically kill women and children of a nation that they label Amalek. And he used the same terminology for Iranians in the first couple of days of the war. He was visiting a US military base, an Israeli military base, and he used that terminology for Iranians. And they have been practicing what they did in Gaza in terms of attacking hospitals, attacking schools, attacking civilian infrastructure. So they're repeating that experience with Iran. Uh, I teach at University of Tehran. The university was closed on this first day of war. We did online classes like during Corona. So the school continues to function. We are on a break this week because of the Iranian New Year, but we're going to start over again. So things have been very difficult. We have people coming to the streets in millions every night. This is what actually Netanyahu asked the Iranians to do on the first day of his attacks. And they are doing that, but they're coming and shouting against Netanyahu and Trump. So Trump has managed to unite Iranians more than any Iranian politician could ever do. And one reason is that they realize that Iran is losing a lot of soldiers. The people who go to these launchers, they know that they will probably get killed, but they still do it. So people feel that if they can do that, then coming to the streets is the responsibility that they have. So there is this rally around the flag effect. Electricity is okay. We don't have any problems with that, and water, food, generally no problems. People come out, go shopping. A lot of offices build, a lot of businesses have been closed. So this is a huge economic hit. Iran was already under sanctions for 47 years, experiencing an economic warfare, but this is much worse because they're hitting a lot of factories, a lot of infrastructure that people lose their jobs if the factory is demolished, and they wouldn't be able to continue to work. So there is significant economic hardship. This was a war that could be avoided. I don't know if you saw the interview of the Omani foreign minister with CBS News right before the war. He said an agreement was available within 24 hours. His words. He said Iran was able to give concessions that Iran could not do before. And he basically begged the Trump administration not to start a war. And I think one reason they expedited the timing was because people were realizing that this is going to be an unnecessary attack. You don't have to believe the analysis of an Iranian professor. You could just read the resignation letter of Joe Kent, this high-ranking Trump administration official, a conservative Republican. You don't have to be a leftist to oppose war. Very clearly, he said that Iran was not an immediate, imminent danger to the United States. I would say that Iran has never been a danger to the United States. And he said that this is the result of the Israeli lobby's push and Israeli government's push to do this. Netanyahu has always wanted to fight Iran using American soldiers, and he found a president in the White House that is willing to provide American soldiers for him to fight his wars. So this is very sad. A lot of people are getting killed. Unnecessary. The hope that we have is that Trump and Netanyahu realize that they're failing. They are failing, and stop the bombings. They could do it today if they want to.
Yeah, that's right. And we do want to express our deep condolences for the thousands and thousands killed, the children, including the assassination of the supreme leader. We know that every person, every martyr from Iran, Lebanon, Palestine who has died is a universe, and this is blood on the hands of the US and Israel in this war of choice, this illegal war. And we've really admired and been inspired by the steadfastness of the Iranian people to keep resisting, to show out to rallies, even in spite of the bombings right near the rallies, which we've seen that footage. Um, Professor Izadi, we know you've observed Western media coverage for many years, and we see the striking parallels of the lies used by the US and the racist tropes used by the US, the myth of the weapons of mass destruction and imminent threats used to justify US intervention on Iraq, and the millions that were killed there to this moment in Iran. How would you characterize the current hybrid warfare being waged by the US? And how does their framing of the motives of this war also serve the current US imperialist class? Could you speak on that?
Right, so we are experiencing a hybrid warfare. We are hearing the bombs fall, but Iran has been under an economic warfare for the last 47 years, and even before that, because before the 1979 revolution, the country's resources were plundered by the Shah, who came into power in 1953 coup. That's why they had the coup, because they wanted Iranian oil. And Iranians didn't know how much oil was taken out of the country because they were not present in facilities that took the oil out. So they just had to trust the United States. U.S. said that we took this much oil out today, and then Iranians would say, okay. They had no way of knowing what was going on. So the plunder of Iran's resources started many decades ago. So that is a form of an economic warfare. And then after the revolution, with sanctions and different types of pressures, there is a propaganda component to the hybrid warfare. We have a lot of Farsi-speaking channels paid by Israel and United States to bombard Iranians with propaganda that comes out of Washington and Tel Aviv. And because of that economic pressure, some people, get tired and they're receptive towards some of this propaganda. I think a lot of people who fell for that propaganda are quite sorry now, because they see the Israelis and Americans are not interested in Iranians, are not interested in human rights here. Trump today called Iranians lunatic nation. So there's a lot of awakening among ordinary Iranian citizens that they're realizing the nature of Trump and Netanyahu regime, the Epstein class. And the propaganda is not only directed towards Iranians. Western audiences under propaganda bombardment as well. For them, they need to demonize Iran so they can somehow justify these wars. And how do they do that? They basically, different media outlets recognize the type of audience they have, and they, with that knowledge, they frame Iran in a way that is more receptive by that audience. So right-wing media uses a lot of racist terminology, Trump calling Iranians lunatic, sort of trying to justify that you can, kill brown people. It's not a big deal. For media outlets that are watched by people on the left, they don't use that. It doesn't work. That type of terminology generally doesn't work with those people. But then they have other talking points. Women's rights, for example, is important. And they portray Iran as a country that's suppressing women. Not true. Some of these things, I'm telling you, would be news to some of your audience, because they have heard about suppressing women in Iran for many decades. So it would sound strange, but this I can tell you that Iranian women are actually better off today in the current government in comparison to what we had during the Shah's government. And the reason is that Iranian society is generally conservative, and a lot of families, given the fact that Shah was promoting Western culture, they were not comfortable with that set of cultural propaganda that was coming out of the Shah's government. After the revolution, they felt much more comfortable with having their daughters go to university. The number of females that have gone to university in Iran after the revolution is many folds more than before, and today we have 55% of university students that are female. Lots of engineers, lots of doctors, lots of people who work in humanities and social sciences are faculty members. The number of females is at international levels. Our female students is, I think, a little bit more than international levels. So there was this issue of headscarf in Iran. 1979 was an Islamic revolution, and it's part of Islamic teaching. So the general public demanded that type of laws, and this was a point that was used by Western governments as a way of energizing a segment of Iranian society against their own country. So once people realize that those laws are not enforced, so if you go to streets in Tehran today, the people just wear whatever dress they want to wear. In terms of social justice issues, there's a lot of progress in the last 47 years. If you look at some of this UN data, Human Development Index, Iran has done quite well in terms of growth. The average age in Iran was about 55 in 1979, and it's 78 today. So when you increase the average age by more than 20 years, that means better food, better medicine, more doctors, more education. This is a very significant achievement for a country that has been under severe sanctions for 47 years. So Iran not only has been able to resist, Iran has been able to grow at the same time, because the government is not a client state of the United States. It's not a puppet government. The wealth of the country is used for the well-being of its citizens, and this is something that Western governments cannot tolerate, because if you have oil, you should be sharing that wealth with the United States. If you don't do that, then they come and kidnap your president, the way they did in Venezuela, or they come and kill your leader, the way they did in Iran. So overall, although there are difficulties in Iran like any other place, it's not perfect, but the demonization is 100% wrong. On the points that they demonize Iran to justify these wars, absolutely wrong. And it makes us sad, because we see some progressive outlets in the United States, in Europe, that know what happened in 1953. They're good at that. They understand what happened in 1953. But they're clueless about 2026, because they are victims of the same propaganda that is used in mainstream media. In January, for example, we had these riots organized by the Mossad. having Mossad agents present is not an analysis of an Iranian professor. This is what Mike Pompeo, the former CIA director, the former Secretary of State, said, sending them New Year greetings. The tweet is still available. He hasn't taken it down. Mossad agents on Iranian streets. Even New York Times last week had an article talking about the fact that Mossad was trying to organize riots in Iran in order to overthrow the government. So they were hoping those riots would become successful, so they don't have to go to war, because I guess they realized it's going to be costly and they were not sure they would succeed. That would have been an easier way of changing Iran's government. So Iran experienced a CIA MI6 coup in 1953, and Iran experienced a CIA Mossad coup in 2026. It's that simple. But for some reason, people don't want to realize that. It's very strange, especially for people on the left, not realizing what's going on. And these people shot ordinary citizens. They shot more than 200 police officers. How can you kill 200 police officers? You know, this doesn't happen in the United States. At protests, if someone, you know, we have seen the videos, if they throw something at the police, they get severe consequences. So we have seen people shot at because they moved their car too fast, or we saw what happened in Seattle, in Minnesota. How can you get more than 200 police officers shot? How can that happen? The instruction that they had was that they could not shoot back. Why? Because it was the decision in the government here that they realized they want to do another Libya in Iran. They wanted to increase the number of people who were killed, so they could do a war like they did after a few months. And they asked the police not to shoot back until things were getting out of hand. They realized this is actually much bigger than many people thought, and then they had permission to shoot back. We lost about 3,000 people, not 32,000. Trump is repeating that number. It's not accurate. It's exaggerated. Iranian government published the names of every single victim with their ID numbers. Trump or Netanyahu or these media outlets on the right and the media outlets on the left, they have not been able to add one single name to that list. Out of the 3,000, we had more than 200 police officers killed. We had 2,200 ordinary citizens who were shot by the other side. They had asked for general strike in Iran, and shopkeepers that refused to follow that order, they were shot. Ordinary citizens were shot in order to increase the number of dead, so they could use that to demonize Iran, so they could attack Iran this month. And they were not successful. So we got 200 police officers shot, 2,200 ordinary citizens shot by the other side. And then once police managed to get permission to defend itself, we had about 600 people on the other side that were shot. So a total of 3,000 people. Very sad, very sad. And then, since that failed, that coup attempt failed, they are protests in Iran. Before the war, even during hard times, genuine protests. I don't know if you saw this report by Dr. Helia Dotaghi. She is a postdoc fellow at University of Tehran. She actually visited, this is before the war, she visited one of these labor protest sites, and she had an extensive report. And as a eyewitness, he saw how people protested and how police was present and how the protesters and police dealt with each other. It's an interesting read. That's normal protest. In English language, you don't call someone who shoots at police, you don't call that a protester. As far as I know, English is not my first language, but in English, if someone shoots at police, they call that person police shooter or cop killer. They don't call the person who shoots at police a protester, unless it's in Iran. In the first couple of days, we had some shopkeepers upset about this foreign currency fluctuation, genuine protest. And then once they realized Mossad is taking over that, then they stayed at home. They did not come. And then you had what you saw. So the hope that we have, of course, we are not expecting Fox News or CNN to tell the truth, because it doesn't fit the frame they want to use. But the hope that we have is that independent people, freedom lovers, anti-war people, people who are interested in truth, see Iran as is. See Iran as is. And don't fall for Israeli or US media outlets, mainstream corporate media outlets that are trying to push a narrative because they have an agenda to push. So this is part of the hybrid warfare. We have propaganda directed towards people in Western countries, especially the United States, so they can do the things they do now. You know, I talk to these Western media outlets all the time, and for the last month, not one reporter, quote unquote reporter, has said anything, has showed any concern about the civilian deaths that Iran has experienced. If you're interested in human rights, you should be interested in human rights of people who are bombed. They show no interest in that because it doesn't fit the frame that they want to push. So it's very selective. The concern about the human rights of Iranians is very, very selective. It's used whenever it's useful for them. And the surprising thing to us is that a lot of these media outlets on the left realize what the corporate media is all about. That's why they started their business to have an alternative view. But when it comes to Iran, suddenly they more or less repeat the same lies about Iran, not helpful. And it's strange that these things are happening. So what you're doing is, I think, important. Hearing another voice from Iran is good. Sometimes these outlets are using Iranians that live outside. Many of them are on the payroll of Pahlavi, and they say what they are supposed to say in order to justify these wars. Pahlavi went to Israel 2 times in the middle of genocide. He's not popular, and even Trump acknowledges that. The other day they asked him about him returning to Iran. He said he's looking for someone more popular. I don't want to say his popularity is less than 1%, because that would be too much. People remember who his father was. His father was a fascist. His grandfather was a fascist. He's a fascist. These rallies that they pay for in these Western capitals, they have to have Israeli flags. You cannot have a Pahlavi rally without Israeli flag, because I guess the Israelis are paying for the rally. And how can you be interested in human rights or justice and at the same time wave Israeli flag? That's not possible. That's not possible. This must be something wrong. And when you invite people associated with him on these leftist media outlets, that's very strange, very strange. So we have this great movement in Western countries that support Palestine. They have done an excellent job during genocide. And some are good, some become hesitant when it comes to Iran. And I think the main reason they're hesitant is because of these propaganda that they hear about Iran. But one thing they should remember, that it was Iran's help that kept the Palestinian cause alive. If it was not, we have some countries in this part of the world that give lip service to the Palestinian cause, but they never do anything for Palestinians, because if they do, then the U.S. would overthrow whoever is helping Palestine. And American officials for decades have told Iran that if you lower your support for Palestine, they don't say eliminate it totally. They say if you lower your support for Palestine, then we get all the sanctions off your back. And Iran has refused to do that. And the reason is that they realize that if you have a fascist government that's thinking about greater Israel, sooner or later they will get to you, as they did this month. So they realize that they should be supporting Palestine because it's the right thing to do, and they realize they should be supporting Palestine because if Israelis get away with the way they have treated Palestinians, they would come for other countries, and Iran would not be very far. And so support of Palestine has been an important component of Iran's foreign policy since 1979. And if you are supporting Palestine and are hesitant about Iran, my suggestion would be to read more about Iran from Iranian sources inside Iran, people who are not on the payroll of Pahlavi, people who are not associated with Western governments. And that would be a good way of getting all the information, and then you can decide what is true and what is false.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm sorry I'm
that's
giving you all these long answers. I hope I'm not messing up your timing.
no, it's really important, and this is absolutely what this interview series is for, to really hear from what's not covered in the Western media. So, and we really recognize that, like you said, Iran has really stood up as an independent country, as an anti-imperialist part of the global anti-imperialist struggle, and has been severely punished for its support of Palestine. Um, it even has that support written into its 1979 Constitution, in spite of all of this US pressure, which has been designed to overthrow and destabilize the country. It's showing the people of the world what it means to be independent. And this moment is really changing the world, with Iran staying true to its independence and being defiant in the face of extreme maximum pressure, coercive, unilateral measures, sanctions, ongoing military attacks every few years. And in spite of this, Iran has maybe surprised Trump, who underestimated the Iranian um, state and the people. And Iran has outmatched the biggest uh, source of terror, the biggest military in the world, striking back at US occupation military bases in the Gulf countries. And really, everyone can see, maybe even more than ever, that the US is isolated, and Trump has a failed war strategy. And we've been impressed with Iran's war strategy, and the ability to fight back. So from Iran's perspective, can you talk a little bit about the military strategy, the diplomatic strategy? What does it mean to, for example, block the Strait of Hormuz, and target US assets in the region. How does this fit into Iran's asymmetric warfare strategy and self-defense against an imperial power? And how does Iran's ability to really exert control over that choke point, the strait, how does this shift the global balance of power and challenge the economic infrastructure, the military infrastructure of US domination in West Asia and really the impact on the entire world?
Under Article 51 of the UN Charter, this right to self-defense is what countries get if the countries are attacked. So Iran is defending Iran. Everybody realizes that this is a war that Americans and Israelis started. Since we may have an American audience here, when I use American, I mean the U.S. government. So we don't mean any harm to American people. In fact, it's very sad that American soldiers get killed. These are young people with young families, victims of the empire, and they're fighting for Israel. They're fighting for the Epstein class. So this is very sad. Iran has no other choice. So when Iran fights back, the other side, you may get some soldiers killed when you're hitting military bases. Even with that slogan, "Death to America," because Trump repeats that, death to America doesn't mean death to American people. It means death to American foreign policy. But since it's a slogan, death to American foreign policy, it's too long. So they say death to America, not meaning no harm to Americans. You are American, nice people. no harm to you. It is the policy of the United States dating back to 1953 that people don't like. You're bombing a nation. F-35s come and bomb cities. So the minimum thing that you can say is death to America. Would that be too much? When you're bombing a people, if they shout back at you, you're sending bombs, and they're sending words. This is what Hegseth, this foolish Secretary of War, said at the beginning of the war, that America is bringing death to people who were shouting death to America. So if you oppose U.S. foreign policy, you get to die. This is what he's saying. So much for freedom of speech. They're not respecting freedom of speech in U.S., and they're killing people who are opposing U.S. foreign policy and shouting about it. So Iran is defending itself, and Iran could do to a Strait of Hormuz what Iran is doing now many years ago. But we had leaders here that thought exercising restraint would be important. So after the assassination of the Iranian general Qasem Soleimani, no American soldier was killed. Iran hit a base, but they wanted actually make sure no one is going to get seriously hurt, because they announce ahead of time which base they're going to hit, and even announce the timing. After the assassination of the heroic Palestinian leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, no American was killed. After the assassination of the Lebanese leader Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, no American was killed. After the 12-day war, Iran lost over 1,200 civilians. No American was killed. Even for that attack, Iran announced the base that Iran was going to hit, the timing, the number of missiles. Trump was joking about this. You remember he was saying that they said, can we attack you at 1 p.m., which is Washington time. And he was joking, and I said, yes, you can do that if you have to. No one is there. These are Trump jokes. And what did we get after exercising all that restraint, Iran had all these missiles all along. They were not built yesterday. Iranian missile capacity, drone capacity was available this year, last year. They were not. So what did Iran get for not using this military capacity? Iran got another attack, this time killing the country's leader, killing scores of others, hitting hospitals, schools, all the things that we talked about. The leadership that exercised restraint is no longer with us. The new leadership is going to fight back. Because they realize that if the cost of attacking Iran is low, then Iran will be attacked every few weeks. You cannot run a country of 90 million people with two nuclear regimes attacking you every few weeks or every few months. So Iran is going to use the leverage that Iran has. And, U.S. military spends 100 times more on itself than Iranian military. The U.S. military budget is 100 times more than Iranian military budget. So when you're facing a military like that, Israeli military like that, two nuclear regimes, then the country has to use all the leverage that Iran has. And one leverage is geography and the Strait of Hormuz. Now, Iran is not part of the Convention on Law of Seas. There's this convention that if you're part of, then leveling transit fees is restricted during peacetime, I might add. Iran is not a member of that convention. US is not a member of that convention. Israel is not a member of that convention. And one thing that Iran needs to make sure is that Iran needs to get paid for all these damages that Israelis and Americans have done. So one option is that we give them a bank account. I doubt it if they're going to deposit any money. The other option is that Iran would level transit fees on American ships or ships that were fighting Iran during this war. Some of these Persian Gulf countries have provided bases to the United States. How do we know that? We have even in Western media outlets. The other day, Wall Street Journal reported that 5 refueling planes were hit in a Saudi base. Not an American base in Saudi Arabia, a Saudi base. And Trump tried to dismiss that, and he said it wasn't 5, it was 1, basically acknowledging the fact that they had refueling airplanes, American airplanes in these bases. On the second day of war, Kuwait shut down, they said by mistake, 2 American jets. Before they had said that we would not allow our airspace to be used by Americans. But how can you shoot American jets if they're not using your airspace? It means they were using your airspace and you shot them, I guess, by mistake. That's what they said. The Secretary of War said the other day they had 6,000 sorties. You cannot do that out of these aircraft carriers that are very far, because if they get close, they'll get hit. So they are not near us. So these bases are used with the permission of these countries. So one way Iran can get, we are hearing bombings. I don't know if you hear it now, but can you hear anything? We are hearing bombings now. No? Yes? You're not hearing it.
Yeah, I can hear.
You can hear it? Okay.
Mhm.
So Strait of Hormuz is going to be used to make sure that that Iran is paid back for all these damages, at least part of it. I'm not sure if we can get all the damages in that way, and that's a way of Iran creating cost. There are going to be people affected negatively all over the world. Very sad. but they should be blaming Trump and Netanyahu for starting this war, for creating all these damages. Uh, I was on BBC Radio this morning, and he said that Iran is taking the world hostage. I said, Iran is not doing that. I said, the US and Israel want to change Iran's government, want to take over Iranian oil, and in order to do that, they don't mind destroying the world economy to achieve some foolish foreign policy objective. And you shouldn't be blaming Iran. You should be blaming the people who started this war. Iran is trying to use the leverage that Iran has in order to make sure the country stays intact. They want, they asked a few days ago, they asked Trump, would Iranian borders stay the same after you're done? And he said, probably not. I'm quoting Trump. Lindsey Graham talking about controlling 31% of oil reserves. He's adding Venezuelan oil and Iranian oil. Iranian oil belongs to Iranians, not Lindsey Graham. So does Venezuelan oil. It belongs to Venezuelans. So this is what Iran is going to insist, I believe. They're going to make sure that the cost to the other side is significant enough. So the things that you hear today as we speak are not repeated every day.
Yeah, the audacity of saying that Iran is holding the world hostage. I really can't believe it. Like, the US has kept the world hostage for years now with its dollar regime, sanctions and wars. It's crazy that, and again, another propaganda point, I think, of Iran is the source of all evil in the world, when in reality the US has been the source of war and destruction. Um, just wanted to thank you again to, yeah, being here and giving this interview, spreading the information, even with the bombs happening right at this moment. And it's been nonstop, as you said, since
Nobody is bombing Seattle, huh? Okay, good.
no, definitely not.
All right. I'm
Um,
happy.
yeah, it's just, yeah, exactly. Like, who is bombing who, right? Who started, who dropped the first bomb, who has been choking or trying to choke Iran's economy for years. It's it's not Iran that has sanctions on the US for years now. Um, so yeah. Um, just wanted to thank you again, yeah, for being here. And besides the bombing, I think that you being here is just one of the ways in which the Iranian people, I think one of the examples how the Iranian people have been out in the streets and been defiant, besides, yeah, this war and tyranny of the Zionist and US regimes. I think also really seeing how many Iranians have talked about this moment as a historical moment for Iran as a nation, but also for the whole region that has been under the grip of the US for so many years now. And I just wanted to hear a little bit. I think people are very curious and interested on where does that steadfastness come from, and yeah, what is the view of this war in the long term for Iranian people, the Islamic Republic, and the region as a whole, yeah, West Asia.
Part of it is just a natural human reaction. If a country is bombed, if a country is attacked, then people unite, especially when they realize that this is an illegal war, an illegal attack, an unnecessary war. Iranians understand that. So part of it is natural to human beings. Um, there are other components that gives this culture of resistance more power. Uh, people here, a lot of people have religious beliefs, and especially in Shia Islam, opposing oppression is very much advertised. Opposing corrupt rulers is very much advertised, and losing one's life in that path is something that is honored. I was looking at this old CIA analysis dated back about 50 years ago. It was in mid 1970s. The first leader of the revolution, Imam Khomeini, was in Shah's prison for a long time, and then he was exiled. And when he was in exile, there were people thinking that maybe they should assassinate him to make sure that he was the leading anti-Shah figure. So there were talks that he should be assassinated so the Shah's government could be secured. And then this CIA analyst said that he opposed that idea, and this is part of the declassified document. And he said that don't create a martyr for Shias, because when you do that, it's actually worse than having the person alive when you create a martyr. And it's true. So he knew his business properly. That was the correct analysis by the CIA analyst. One reason you have Iranians coming to the streets because they created a martyr. The country's leader was 86. He would have passed away in a few years, of course. But killing him when he, killing an 86-year-old man, creating a martyr, big mistake. Big mistake. Even if some people I know didn't like him. I was walking in the streets the other day. Someone I didn't know, he had seen my writings. So he stopped me and he said that I didn't like this man, but we are talking about Iran as a country, and he represented Iran. He was Iran's leader. I didn't like him, but at the end of the day, he was the country's leader. And he said I didn't like him getting killed. So this is the situation that we have because of that historical background, because of that religious background, because of ordinary nationalism that exists in all countries. You don't like your country to be attacked. When you combine all these factors, then you get a nation that is resisting, that is growing. We talked about Iran's military capacity. These are all indigenous technology. Western governments never gave the government in Iran in the last 47 years anything. So we are not like these Persian Gulf states having access to billions of petrodollars and getting all these weapons from the United States. Iran didn't get its weapons like that. It's all indigenous technology, and people are proud that the engineers could produce weapons that is defending the country. And overall, I think this is what the US is doing is a failed policy. Iranians are united. If you can get 90 million people or close to 90 million people united against the foreign aggression with resources, with intellect, with defense capacities, then you're going to fail. And the hope that in Iran people have is that sooner or later Trump would realize this is a failed policy. Once he realizes that, he will declare victory. This is how Trump operates. When he has a failure, he will declare victory, and then hopefully he will go away, which is unfortunate because he may want to take over Greenland. That's also not good. But go fight with the Europeans. We have been fighting Iranians for a long time. So these are the hopes that we have, that the war ends as soon as possible, and hopefully we have a regime change in the United States. We hope Americans realize that electing war criminals is not a good idea. It's hurting United States and it's hurting other countries. And the more Americans realize this, then the idea of getting people like Trump elected as the president of the United States becomes less likely.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the Gulf states and to really also seeing how even all those petrodollars are really the US is not really protecting them like I said it would. And
There are more U.S. bases are more a liability for
yeah,
them than an asset.
exactly. The US bases that created those targets. So yeah, really interesting. I think yeah, thank you so much again for being here and delivering this. I just wanted to open up if there's any other points that we didn't touch on that you would like to touch on to that the audience would be good for the audience to know, or anything like that. Is there
You know,
anything that,
not much. I just want to thank you for spending the time. We need the solidarity from outside. It helps. It helps people. The bombings have been going on for like 10 minutes now. It continues. It's not stopping. So the solidarity is very important uh, for people who pray. Prayers are important, and Iran is fighting for Iran, and Iran is fighting for the civilized world. Uh, if Trump is able to get away with his crimes in Iran, he would go after Europe next. He would go after other independent countries next. In fact, they want to take over the Middle East so they can use their oil resources here to put pressure on China. This is not my analysis. This is Lindsey Graham saying that we'll have leverage against China. They're interested in Greater Israel. Unfortunately, some of these Persian Gulf states don't realize that if Iran is defeated, Iran is not going to be defeated. But if Iran is defeated, then Israelis are interested in Saudi territory, Greater Israel. It's what Netanyahu talked about. This is what Mike Huckabee, the U.S. ambassador in Israel, talked about. Greater Israel means Saudi territory, Egyptian territory, Jordanian territory, Iraqi territory, Syrian territory, Lebanese territory. Today Israel announced that they're going to be occupying Lebanese territory up to Litani River, and I don't think they will give that territory back unless they're pushed back. They would not give it back voluntarily. That's Greater Israel, and so all the solidarity would help. We need it. You are providing it. I hope there are more people who would do the same.
yeah, thank you so much. I think, yeah, the mention of Lebanon too, and the call for the solidarity to also stand with people's resistance, just like Israel was forced out of Lebanon in the 2000s. And I think Iran is showing the world how to combat US imperialism, expose its flaws and its shortcomings and failures. I think it's important for us to, yeah, spread the world, spread the analysis. I think, Fawad, thank you so much. It
No
was
problem. Let me
great
add
to have
this
you here.
point. Let me just add this last point, that
Yeah,
we
please.
consider American people victims of the Epstein class as well. So we have a shared enemy. Um, we are victims of Epstein class. People in the United States are victims. It's your taxpayer dollars that are bombing Tehran as we speak. And it's not good for the United States. These are American soldiers that may get killed in these wars. We don't like to kill American soldiers. We try to avoid that uh, by not doing things not to start this war. But for the other side not to start this war. So there is this shared uh, solidarity with people in the United States, because the same people who are oppressing people in the US are oppressing us as we speak.
Yeah, the enemy hasn't been this clear. I think one shared enemy for all peoples of the world, all peace-loving people. So yeah, thank you so much. Do you have
Thank
anything
you.
to add, Carly?
No, but this is really illuminating. I hope our audiences continue to follow um, the calls for solidarity that have been laid out. We should join this struggle and take whatever actions we can where we are, whatever part of the world we're watching, and whether we're in Asia Pacific, we're in Latin America, we're in Europe, we're in North America, we're in Africa. This is an international struggle for like Professor Foad said, for civilization, for peace, for justice. And we're here to stand with Iran, Lebanon, Palestine, and all peoples resisting US imperialism. So yeah, it's just an honor to have some of your time. We hope that the bombings stop immediately, and it's all of our task to fight the U.S. government that is uh, instigating this aggression. So our calls remain to stop the war, um, to stand against U.S. aggression, intervention, and all forms of military threats. That these cease immediately, whether against Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, or any part of the world. So yeah, thank you, Professor, and we'll continue to stand together.
Thank you. Take care.